Okay, uh, let's get started. Just a reminder, please sign into the doc and put any agenda items on there. Okay. Get started. Looks like there's just one agenda item around libcnb support for SBOM. Daniel, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I just put this on here. I submitted an initial PR that kind of adds the minimum support required for SBOM. It's really just bumping the API versions that libcnb supports to include BuildPack API 0.7. But I was kind of wondering people's thoughts on how far we should go in libcnb or what else we might do to make supporting SBOMs easier. It's I think my opinion is that it's not that difficult to just generate that information as a BuildPack author, and I'm not sure that libcnb really needs anything else, but I'm curious what other people's thoughts were, because we did have like some more built-in support for SBOM with the older format where you could build up objects in memory and then pass those to libcnb and it would just write them out magically for you. So I don't know if people are expecting something similar for the new support or not. Just curious what thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think the least we could do is potentially give people the appropriate file paths back that they need to write into. So like if they have a layer and they give us an appropriate format that they want to write in, we can give them back the correct file path. And it can also serve as a validator for what formats are allowed. I guess that's the only possible thing I can see libcnb doing, which is like just making sure people don't make mistakes with the parts that we have written down in the API. Like they're not misspelling file names or putting it in the wrong place. That's it. I can't imagine anything more than that would go into libcnb at this point.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of my thought too. I was debating on whether we return a file path or we return like a writer that someone could just, write to, or have both options.
Yeah, I think a file path might be a more flexible API. That way, like if you're shelling out to something, you can just pass the file path along, or if you're using it in memory, then also you can use the file path directly instead of a writer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is, and it's only a very mild convenience to have a writer in certain cases anyway. So, okay. I can submit another PR for something, kind of take a go at that and see what it might look like. It's probably just a matter of adding a function somewhere that, it's pretty simple conversion, maybe some cons for the versions that we or for the formats we support or something like that.
Yeah, I think maybe like an enum or something with the different SBOM formats, and then just using those, I guess.
Okay. And we have the ones we're supporting, Cyclone DX, SPDX, and SIFT.
Yep. I think those are the ones that currently went into the lifecycle release candidate.
Okay. The other question I had was on deprecation of the older format of SBOMs. I think we could, very easily just deprecate it in code, code and comments. What do you think about going beyond that though? Should we, because we could detect when someone is still using the old SBOM format and either log a debug or info level message that says like, hey, this is going away, update your build pack.
I think Maybe Anthony knows this better than I do, but I think if you currently output in the old format with the new API, the lifecycle would just error.
It won't error. It will warn that it's not really supported.
Okay.
Okay,
It
so
doesn't error?
it won't hard error. I think it will keep going, but it won't stop completely. I'm right. It will just give you a warning message.
Okay. So if something's already generating a warning, then we don't necessarily need to do that in libcnb.
Although, I don't know. I personally have a stance that we should just, as a build pack author, you should just error out so that, like, when you're doing unit testing using libcnb, that's like way before you've actually hit an actual build and running it on some production cluster. So I think it might be better in libcnb to error out. What do you think? Like the lifecycle may still just give a warning. The libcnb part may error out in that way, and that might help in the CI/CD process to detect that, hey, you did a version bump, but the format you're using is not really supported.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering about like how long we should continue to support that. Like we have a number of build packs in Paketo that are using that older format still. And
I don't think that's an issue with the older API. Like if you use the older API, we should just not do anything. I think the issue comes when you bump to build pack 07 and still outputting in that format.
Gotcha. So it's the combination of those two.
If you're on the older API, that's part of the spec, and that should still be supported. That's what the lifecycle is for. It's only when you move to the newer API and still using the older format.
Yeah, it's still hard because we have people that are using the older format. We can't really just drop it
that's
immediately. We have to kind of try to support both at the same time, at least for some period.
That completely makes sense from the project's like build patch perspective. That's why the RFC and lifecycle handle that for you. So like if you're still on the older API, you can still generate those BOM files, and we'll still add those to where you expect. It's just that as a project, we expect if you're moving to a newer API, you should conform to that API.
Yeah, no, I get that. It still leaves us, because of the way that we publish the build packs, it still leaves us in a spot where we have to do a hard cutover. Because at some point we have to bump that API version.
Yep. But I mean, this build pack version, for example, doesn't add any other features apart from that SBOM one. So if you're bumping over, if you're bumping a specific build pack over, I don't see why you would want to do that.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi cut out there. I'm not sure what happened.
I couldn't hear you in the middle, but the last thing I heard was there was a hard cut between releasing.
Yeah, at least like the way that we release it, it seems like at some point we have to bump the API to 0.7. And if we can't retain the old format and the new format of SBOM for at least a few releases, then we're left doing a hard cut at some particular version. And then we have to put it onto the users to say, like, when you're ready to upgrade, go to this next release.
I don't know if it's worth mentioning, but even though it does warn, it doesn't actually process the old format when you bump API versions. Does that make sense? Maybe not very intuitive, but basically it won't do anything with any old formatted BOM files. Does that make sense?
So if we bump to the API 0.7, that's the lifecycle will no longer process the older format.
I think so.
Okay. So that's another issue we're gonna have to work through, because that's gonna leave us again. It's like a hard cut over. Okay.
think we should probably either clarify that in the spec or make a hard decision on the lifecycle side. Like we should, I don't know what the warning message looks like. Does it just say it's dropping those files, or does it just say they're unsupported?
It says it's not supported.
I think we should.
And then it tells you, it should be written to this location.
Okay.
Should we update that to say that it will not put that information or not process it? Because that might be.
I mean, it says it's not supported. I mean, I think the message is pretty clear. It's just, how it's very easy to like miss, right? In a scrolling output or whatever, right? That's what I'm more worried about.
Okay, I think we should bring it to a wider group, but I personally think that we should just fail if you're on the newer API version and you're outputting the old ones. Or if we think otherwise, then we should make those changes. But we should talk to a wider group about how to handle this.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if it's not going to process the files, I think failing would be better, because you're just in a inconsistent state that people are going to have misaligned expectations on it.
I mean, I don't have strong feelings. I'm not I didn't actually have a say in this, but
Okay.
Yeah, Daniel, do you mind posting that again in the implementation chat? So maybe you can pick up the thread there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I can post something there.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for clarifying that. I guess that kind of makes the discussion as far as what libcnb does a little easier. libcnb just, if it's API 07, then it should, I think that'd be another point we could fail, I guess.
Yeah, I would probably have us fail in libcnb itself, because that's one, like, I know, for example, some of the Paketo build packs don't do integration testing, in which case it might be better to just fail in libcnb and catch it in unit tests.
Yeah, it'd be the quickest way to get that feedback.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I think that was all the questions I had on that.
Yeah. I think we did something similar for some features in Packet. At least I remember submitting a pull request where during some API version bump, something was unsupported, and we added the code to fail instead of carry on. So there might be some precedent in Packet. I don't think in libcnb we've done something like that, because we just dropped the API versions entirely. And I think this is the first time libcnb is supporting 3 API versions.
Yeah.
I did want to, while we have a good crowd here, I did want to throw something out, just sort of brainstorming. Maybe, as you know, the life cycle is sort of really painful to sort of contribute to, because of basically we support basically every API version that ever is made, and every time you make a change, it's it's very, it's sort of hard to keep all the logic sane and make sure things that used to work at the older version still work and things work for newer version. And there's just no holistic way to make that intact. So I've been thinking, I was wondering if, because this isn't really a lifecycle thing, right? Like, I think we're seeing this play out in the spec too, right? Where like we're wondering, hey, do we do separate Git repos, or do we just duplicate the files? I did a spike personally on duplicating all the files every time that there's a new API version. And while that's easy to follow, it's actually very ugly when it's all said and done.
What does that mean? Like duplicate all the files when?
Oh no, okay, that's a good question. So let's say that, sorry, let's just imagine that there's a code that handles detect, like a detect.go, right? And let's say in a newer platform API version, there's some change to detection, right? There's some change to the detect code. Basically, the idea is that detect.go gets duplicated for the new API version as well, right? And then you just add your little one-line change there. Kind of like the spec. Kind of like what we were thinking about for the spec. Does that make sense?
Detect.go for a build pack would, I still don't, I'm not sure if I understand.
No, that's fair. Let me try to draw it out. Like maybe we could have like detect, and then we can have like a v2.go and then detect. Let's say I want to make a version API 3.go. I do that. This is what my spike basically tried to do, right? Like every time there's a new platform API version, just sort of duplicate the file and then add the change.
So this is in a build pack, in the lifecycle, in where?
Oh, no. This is in the lifecycle. I'm only talking about lifecycle code.
Oh, okay.
I'm only talking about, how we handle platform API changes.
Oh, okay. So for each new version that the lifecycle supports, there's a versioned package for that new version. That way, for the old version, the code is frozen in time, and for the new version, you have new code, and then it dispatches to that based on the version number.
Yeah, I mean that's what I tried, and I didn't like it. I was wondering if we all had tried something in a similar project, an older project. This is the first time I've ever been on a project that, like, supports previous versions and never like
deprecates
them. So I guess I was wondering if y'all had ways around this or something.
Yeah, so you're talking about this as a way to avoid a lot of complicated like branching logic.
Yeah, exactly, right. There's either branching logic or duplication or some sort of Git solution or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't think I have something that comes to mind. I don't personally know of a component like Lifecycle whose sole responsibility is to maintain compatibility across a plethora of versions. Lifecycle is the only thing that comes to mind. There are other places where people support like older version, and then it goes based on semantic versioning. So anything that's zero word just breaks things as you go. And then beyond that, once you hit a stable API, that's supported until you hit a new major version. And if people update to a major version, then it's on them. I don't think there's anything as complicated like build packs in terms of compatibility where we have lots of different versions at the same time. Kate's API versions probably come close, but they have a very clear versioning strategy, and they also had a clearly laid out plan on how to get people to upgrade. So I think that's the main issue we have. Like, we don't have a good upgrade strategy for people, and we don't have a clear deprecation plan for when our APIs will go out. Like, and by upgrade, I mean like automated upgrades, not documentation, manual upgrades.
Okay, no, it's all right. I was just wondering if something came to mind. What do you think about this? This is just a spitballing dumb idea. What do you think about you compile multiple versions of the lifecycle into the same binary, and then at runtime you sort of pick the binary you want based on the platform API version? I mean, the binary would get kind of bloated, but presumably that could be one way.
I personally don't see why, how how closely related is the platform API version to the Buildpack API version? Is my question. Are there certain platform versions for which we don't support certain Buildpack API versions? Like, how would the versioning strategy go in your case? Like, let's say we add a new Buildpack version 08. Would you go back and add it to platform 02 at this point?
Okay, that's a good question. That's not. I don't think that's a big concern, right? We probably wouldn't do that. It would probably be in a newer platform. I don't think the Buildpack versions are sort of too much, to be honest. Just because you know the code is easy to manage. Like the Buildpack code isn't spread all over the place, right? But you know when you have a platform change, I guess that's sort of the problem, right? The platform changes aren't really localized. It could happen in any part of the code base, right? Like a platform change can. Yeah, I guess that's the issue, right? Maybe if we were able to localize platform changes, like we were able to with Buildpack, then we could just have like multiple packages or something.
Because if you do that dynamic selection during runtime, how would you? What happens if there's a certain platform API versions, but your Buildpack versions are between like 02 and 08 or like 07, whatever?
That's a good. I guess I don't have a problem with the Buildpack API versions being duplicated across the platform API versions that need it, because like I said, it's not that much complexity to deal with from what I've seen. It's the platforms themselves, right? Just the fact, let's even forget Buildpack API version. Just the fact that you have like multiple up to platform 08, right? By now, and then we have to make sure every platform still works exactly the same. That's sort of the tough part.
In my opinion, it's easier to deprecate platform versions, right? We know there are a handful of platforms as opposed to Buildpacks. Like if a new version of Pack supports a certain platform, and like we have a list of all the major platforms anyway, right? Like it's either Pack based or a custom solution that runs the lifecycle directly.
Yeah.
I guess
yeah, I guess that's the solution. We start deprecating platform versions. Up till now we never did, right? So
I think like whenever we brought up deprecation, people have been more concerned about Buildpack API because like there's just so much Buildpack 02 code out there that it's going to be really hard to deprecate Buildpack API versions, but platform I think should be fine.
Yeah, I think even with Buildpack, you have the opportunity to start injecting messages kind of into the stream when they are deprecated, and you have an easy way to communicate with users and authors so that you can at least give some notice of when those things are going to start dropping off. But I'm definitely in favor of just pruning off some of those. That seems like the easiest approach.
Hey, Daddy.
all right, that's definitely food for thought.
I think we have to start the conversation around deprecation soon anyway, right? Like I don't know how long before we hit 1.0, but I think before we hit 1.0, we need to have a clear deprecation strategy.
Yeah, and not being 1.0, you should expect a little more churn and things to drop off. I don't think you have the right to expect things to last forever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I don't know how helpful that was, but
no, that's pretty helpful.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Thanks.
I mean, I personally haven't worked a lot with lifecycle code, so I can only imagine what kind of issues you all are facing, but like
I mean, I kind of think it's like the spec, right? The same conversations we're having around the spec, around like, I kind of see it as the same issue. It's just I don't know, for some reason we have more fruitful discussions around the spec and branching strategies and spectral factors and stuff like that, but not really life cycle, which has the same problems.
Cool. I think that's it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Good chatting.
See ya.